Well, hi, Catherine.
Hi, Izzy.
Welcome to We All Meet. So this series sort of intended to introduce the We All network to one another in a casual, quick way. And my hope is that through the series, our network can further get a grasp on who is in our network and how each person interested in creating a well-being economy can support its design and implementation both locally and globally. So each week, I'm going to be interviewing a member of the network and sharing this short 10-minute interview via our YouTube channel. And so today I'm interviewing you, Katherine, our strategic advisor at WEAll, and you are an Aussie at birth, but pretty much a Scot. And I know that you've been very instrumental in kickstarting both WEAll Scotland Hub and also the Wellbeing Economy Government's initiative, or the WeGo initiative. So I'm very happy to have you here because you are deep in this work. And the first question that I have for you is, as an author, you wrote the book Economics of Arrival, which, quick plug, everyone should buy it. And it's obvious that you've studied this content for years, but curious sort of what the spark it is that piqued your interest in learning about well-being economics. I don't even know if you called it that at the time, or the kind of concept of alternative economic systems.
I think it's been almost a long journey rather than a light bulb moment. Even when I was doing my undergraduate university, I was always interested in the combination of economics and politics. At the time, I thought I was going to go into the area of trade, basically because I had a really cool lecturer and who was just so inspiring. And then I spent some time just literally on my way home from living in Scotland back to Australia, living and working in Cameroon. And when I got back to Australia, the village where I'd been living was decimated by a flood. And my instant reaction was, I need to go back and help. I need to, I don't know, peel potatoes or fill sandbags or something. And I was lucky in that one of the courses I was doing at Melbourne University at the time was run by this amazing activist from East Timor who was teaching human rights. And I was talking to her about this, and she said, Katherine, don't be so stupid. You're this white girl from Australia. You'll get in the way. You are so lucky to be able to study here and get your education and pile in on learning why countries and villages and towns like the one you are living in are so vulnerable. And that, in a way, I think that is what one made me think I've got to use this privilege that I've got by my circumstances of birth, but also to look upstream. And so that was one key moment. And then another one when I was working with Oxfam in Scotland, and we were asking questions around persistent gaps in life expectancy and how do politicians focus on the financial wealth of the country, but not enough on the human wealth or the social wealth that also matters to people's life outcomes. And it just got me interested in that beyond GDP question. And I think in a way, it's a beyond GDP movement that was my doorway into that wider new economy, well-being economy conversation. So they were probably two key moments that made me interested in just asking that question of, what's the root cause of so many of the challenges our world is facing today?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like, just a quick follow-up, but do you feel like you've seen those two issues sort of marry as you've been doing the work of like how the small village is the most vulnerable, and also how GDP has maybe influenced the circumstances of those communities?
Brilliant question, and profoundly so, because the more countries like Scotland, the UK, Australia focus on their success through growing the economy, and that's measured by GDP, the less attention they will pay to questions around environmental sustainability, global equality, let alone global justice. And it really, the GDP lens is so full of perverse incentives, and it trains the gaze of policymakers on a very, very narrow set of questions. And it implicitly downplays other questions that are, I think, more important to life. And things like the question of global justice, and can that village in Cameroon or those like it have a decent fighting chance to increase their material living standards? And if we don't think about the economic models, the production and consumption processes in countries like the one I'm sitting in at the moment, Scotland, we're implicitly saying those global inequalities are going to stay embedded in the system. So they absolutely mutually reinforce and speak to each other. And I think that's the beauty of the wellbeing economy agenda, is that it asks us to look upstream and interrogate some of those root causes and see some of those interconnections, really by tackling what is at the very essence of some of the sort of symptoms and the crises that we're trying to grapple with today, and can we be bolder in how we start to answer them?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that actually relates to my next question about this idea of being bold, because I would think, because you've been deep in this content for a while, like, I'm sure you've seen some incredible strides. You got, supported 5 governments coming together and say, hey, we actually do want to move beyond GDP. But I'm also sure that you've seen many missed opportunities. So what gives you hope, or kind of keeps pushing you to pursue this agenda?
So to be honest, it depends what day it is. Some days there are where I am despairing. I just think the magnitude of the challenge is so enormous and complex, and the resistance to progress is so profound and powerful. I sometimes I do have not lack of hope, but less hope. But the days where I am feeling optimistic are usually days where I've hung out with various members of WEAll, or various corners of this wide, rich, diverse, creative, passionate economic system change movement. And that's where I feel that there is prospects for change, because so many people around the world are sparking these conversations. They're rolling up their sleeves and starting to deliver change wherever they are, whatever country they're in, whatever particular aspect of a wellbeing economy makes their eyes light up, or where they feel they can affect change. And so it's not as if nothing is happening. We know what this looks like. We see so many examples of a different economic system being built everywhere, actually. I think almost the next wave that we all need to put our collective shoulder into is joining them up and making them connect in a way that it does add up to economic system change in a bigger sense. It's not okay just to have lots of different islands of progress where the water of business as usual just wash its way around them. But I think that's almost the position where the movement stands now, is we've got good practice, we know what it looks like. Can we link arms together and make some of these relatively small scale examples add up? And when I see them in action, and I also see the energy of people in the movement coming together and supporting each other and encouraging each other and enthusing each other and just being there for each other and celebrating each other, that also gives me profound hope, because Isabel, this work is really hard. And as we're seeing at the moment, the current system is biting back. The old paradigm is reasserting itself. And so that's also where I feel hopeful, is when I see the movement taking care of each other and nourishing each other and helping each other become more powerful and stronger and bolder.
I so appreciate that, because I was thinking, sort of while you're speaking, it's like, what gives you hope, but then how do you give even the audience, or like, whoever is listening to this, sort of something to sort of munch on? And I agree. It's like, how do we even communicate just one-on-one with each other about our own experiences in the world, and whether or not the tone is positive or the tone is negative, the tone is optimistic or pessimistic, and how that repetition really matters in order to be able to bind and create a more positive story about our future. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think we have to be honest about the challenges and the blockages and the forces, which is a rather loaded term, but the forces that are operating against this movement. And I think the fact they're quite loud and feel quite powerful at the moment is partly because of our success. A couple of years ago, they would have dismissed us and laughed at our ideas and called them unrealistic. They're not doing that anymore. What they're doing is really circling the wagons to criticize some of these ideas and double down and shout in the ears of politicians. And I think that does show progress on our part, the fact that they're feeling compelled to really push back in the way that they are. But it also is a really critical juncture where we need to support each other and take care of each other and take care of ourselves like we've never done before, because the going is going to get really tough. The harder journey is still ahead of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. And that
Pleasure.
sort of concludes our little interview. And thanks for joining me on Meet.